Okay, I think I'm bright enough. I don't know what's going on here. Oh, okay, I know what's going on. There we go. All right, my beautiful people, man. Good evening, good evening, good evening to you. Thanks so much for joining us here tonight. Man, the New Black Wall Street Book Club is back. I don't know. Hey, man, you know, when a brother out there getting that money, sometimes you got to postpone some stuff. So anyway, we're back here tonight, man. New Black Wall Street Book Club. We continue along our journey into Black Fortunes, the story of the first 6 African Americans to escape slavery and become millionaires. While you guys are joining, man, go and let us know where you're connecting from, what city, what state, what country as well. Here tonight, man. Darren Smith, thanks so much for joining us here tonight. Thanks so much for being here, brother. It's we got to go get into this thing, man. Go get Facebook, YouTube, also Instagram, a little bit of time to let people know that we're here. So we make sure we don't miss anybody, because I know you guys be like, man, you got started and I didn't get a chance to hear the jingle. Well, don't worry, guys. I'm going to wait about 2 minutes here before we get started. Again, Black Fortunes, the story of the first 6 African Americans who escaped slavery and become millionaires. Now, I think this is a profound time for us to be going through this book. As we're entering the end of the year, we're also entering the end of a decade. Many of us are still find ourselves in chains, some type of way, whether it be financially, we're slave to a lender, whether it be emotionally or psychologically. We haven't really captured our thoughts, and so the escape. Everybody put in the comments. So the escape, right, into prosperity in every area of your life. And so let's not just look at this from a standpoint of financially, that these brothers and sisters were able to accomplish something great and fantastic about 150, 200 years ago. But let's draw from history. Let's draw from our ancestors. Let's draw from the elders and see what we need to do now in 2019 going to 2020, so we can escape and be and get into prosperity in every area of our life. Now, the good book says that I pray that you would prosper as your soul prospers. That's right. I pray that you would prosper as your soul prospers. Man, Jennifer Almano, thanks so much for joining us. Jonesboro, Georgia in the house, Baltimore, Maryland. Thanks so much for joining, man. You guys know what time it is. It's time to get this show on the road, Mr. DJ. Hey, hits the music. New Black Wall Street Book Club. Evan Jefferson, brother, much love. Educating, elevating, because in knowledge is the power and we'll never give it up. Literature's for the masses. Where to put your money down, now how to watch your assets. Yeah, uplifting others is a passion. My brother Evan, he will turn it into action. New Black Wall Street Book Club. You should come read with us. Yeah, we comprehend and discuss. Yeah. We all just come together. There's no limit for us. Here comes your host, New Black Wall Street. Evan, take it away. New Black Wall Street. New Black Wall Street Book Club. All right, my beautiful people, man. Thanks so much for joining us here tonight on New Black Wall Street Book Club, where Black folk do read. You put in a book, we absolutely will find it. I'm your host, ERGJ, your certified financial educator, CEO of ERGJ Enterprises, ERGJ Black Bazaar, and international best-selling author of the book, The Black Billionaires Club. That book, guys, that I wrote is a study of Black wealth. It's a study of the 12 richest Black people in the world today and how they built their wealth. And I just truly believe that if you want to be wealthy, I recommend that you study wealthy people. That's right, man. You study wealthy people. Well, I believe that you can start that study by picking up a copy of the book today. Just simply go to the website, theblackbillionairesclub.com, theblackbillionairesclub.com. You can pick up the book, the ebook. You can get it in French, ebook, audiobook as well for our brothers and sisters in the diaspora. Go ahead and pick up your copy today. Well, guys, I want to say thanks so much to our sponsor here tonight, which is going to be ERGJ Black Bazaar, the Afrocentric marketplace, where we specialize in Afrocentric home decor, personal care products, and also Black Art Inspired Gifts, man. Go ahead and check out the website, www.ergjblackbazaar.com, www.ergjblackbazaar.com. Man, once you shop Black, people, guess what? You never go back. That's right. Once you shop Black, you never go back, man. Check them out at www.ergjblackbazaar.com, www.ergjblackbazaar.com. All right, my beautiful people, man, it's time for us to get right into this thing here tonight, man. The New Black Wall Street Book Club. We're getting into the book Black Fortunes, which is the story of the first 6 African Americans to escape slavery and become millionaires. Well, we always start with our appetizer. That's right. It's going to be our motivation for success. That's right. Our daily motivation for African American success. And our title for tonight is The Today Show. Our title for tonight is The Today Show. And our quote of tonight comes from Bryant Gumbel, the morning news host, who says this: "You never know which key unlocks the safe." Everybody put in the console, you never know. You never know which key unlocks the safe. You never know. And today's passage of the day. Today's passage of the day, let's read. Success can be achieved by only by those willing to persevere beyond the point where the majority stop and turn back. Success can be achieved only by those willing to persevere beyond the point where the majority stop and turn back. Few of us realize how long it takes in the early days to succeed in an extraordinary way. There are difficult steps to be taken. A story is told of a scuba diver and fortune hunter who spent 14 years searching for a sunken Spanish galleon off the Florida Keys. Each day, the crew kept looking for this elusive ship. Many wondered if they would ever find it or if the ship was even there. The captain of the expedition had a motto that kept the crew inspired: "Today's the day." Everybody put it down, so today is the day. Today's the day. He had t-shirts and signs printed bearing that maximum. Then one day, today was the day. The crew found the sunken treasure, turning each crew member into a millionaire in the process. Anita Baker, the talented female vocalist, was turned down by numerous record companies and reduced to tears before she signed on with Elektra Records. But today is her day. A film producer, Matty Rich, made more than 100 presentations to potential investors before he secured the funding to produce his first movie, Straight Outta Brooklyn. But today is his day. And dancing choreographer Judith Jamison began her quest for the bright lights when she was 6. Many days she danced on aching legs and bleeding feet, but today is her day. Today she is labeled America's premier dancer. Today is your day. Today is the day for you to take another step closer to your goal. Often it is just a single step that makes the difference. Often it is just a single step that makes a difference. Today is the day. And here is our affirmation of the day, people. Here's what you want to allow to take root into your heart, your subconscious. And then you grow and develop this thing by repeating it over and over and over again until it brings forth a harvest into your life. Repeat after me. Today and every day, I will continue to step toward my goal. Again, repeat after me. Today and every day, I will continue to step toward my goal. Let's do this again, people. It's time for the people in the back, man. We got to make sure that they know we serious about this thing. This time, say it with some conviction. Repeat after me. Today and every day, I will continue to step toward my goal. Well, kings and queens, as you continue to step towards your goal, just know this. It is often just a single step that makes the difference. It is often just a single step that makes the difference. The Today Show. Daily Motivation for African American Success by Mr. Dennis P. Kimbro. Daily Motivation for African American Success by Mr. Dennis P. Kimbro. Well, my brothers and sisters, we're going to get right into the meat of our conversation here tonight. Here on the New Black Wall Street Book Club. That was our appetizer. Hopefully got you ready to rock and roll, got you feeling pumped and, believing in yourself. That it often is only just a single step that makes a difference. And we're going to be continuing along in our journey into Black Fortunes, the story of the first 6 African Americans to escape slavery and become millionaires. And we are now into chapter 5. Okay, chapter 5. And this chapter's title is the near lynching of a millionaire. The near lynching of a millionaire. Now, I didn't check to see how long this is. It's very short. Well, should we do 2 chapters? Let's see. Oh, let's do 2 chapters. Let's do 2 chapters tonight. Bring it. We're going to do 2 chapters, okay? Look like we're doing 2 chapters tonight. All right. So, our first chapter, chapter 5, the near lynching of a millionaire. Let's read. This is back in July of 1863. July of 1863. Let's get it. Late one hot evening in New York City, a lynch mob made up of white men and adolescent boys marched down East 29th Street in Manhattan toward the home of New York's richest black man, Jeremiah Hamilton. They wore dingy shirts with the sleeves rolled up and leather boots and carried revolvers, rifles, clubs, and sharpened sticks. As they marched down the graveled street toward the brownstone where Hamilton lived, they bellowed out his house number, 68, 68, 68, and waved their weapons above their heads. Hamilton and his wife, Eliza, heard the chants reverberating through the walls of their home. Hamilton was perhaps New York's most infamous African-American man. He was a ruthless Wall Street broker, lived in a brownstone in an all-white section of the city, and was married to a white woman 15 years his junior. His skin was the color of mahogany. He wore expensive gray and black suits and a wig of flowing black hair. He was referred to as the Prince of Darkness and Nigger Hamilton, as the newspapers cataloged his financial and social dealings in New York. He could hear the boots of the men down on the street and their yelling and taunts as they drew closer to his house. Out of options, he bolted out the back door, jumped the back fence of his house, and ran away down 28th Street. As the men drew closer, Eliza was left behind to face the mob alone. The streets have been a war zone for 2 days, ever since the federal government had begun draft lotteries for the Civil War. As the first names were drawn in New York, the city exploded in violence as working-class white men took to the streets and raged against the prospect of being forced to fight and end the enslavement of African Americans. In mobs of thousands, they overpowered the police, destroyed government buildings, lynched and crucified black citizens, and destroyed black churches and orphanages. High-profile African Americans were hunted as prize kills for lynch mobs. The day before they set upon Hamilton's home, rioters had sacked and burned a pharmacy that belonged to James McCune Smith, America's first black medical doctor. When they arrived at Hamilton's house, the men began to scream, "Bring the nigger out!" One of Hamilton's white neighbors came outside and told the mob he wasn't home, but the mob ignored his pleas to leave and continued shouting, "Nigger!" and "Bring him out!" One of the men told the neighbor, "There's a nigger living in there with 2 white women, and we're going to bring him out and hang him from the lamppost." The men climbed Hamilton's stoop and began slamming their shoulders into the front door. When it wouldn't give, one of the men ran around back of the house and ran in the basement door. He ran up the stairs into the parlor floor of the house, followed by a dozen other rioters. At the top of the stairs, they were met by Eliza Jane Hamilton. Eliza was tall with pale skin, a downturned mouth, and brown hair that she wore in a French braid. "What do you want?" she asked the men. "Mr. Hamilton," one man grunted. "We're going to kill him," another threatened. "Why?" Eliza demanded, trying to appear unafraid. "Revenge," another man yelled. The men pushed past Eliza and spread out across the house to look for Hamilton. They scoured the house's 5 bedrooms, its long hallways, its closets, the basement, the dining room, and the parlor for the rich black man they had come to lynch. Along the way, they looted his home, stuffing items of value they found in the house into their shirts and pockets. Observing the commotion through their blinds, his neighbors locked their doors and bolted their windows. 2 neighbors came outside and stood on their stoops to see what was going on. "There's trouble at the Hamiltons." As they purport that they were going to burn him out and hang him, the first neighbor said. "Will you go down?" the other neighbor asked. "No." "You won't stand here and see a man murdered without going to help him?" the neighbor asked after a break in the conversation. The other neighbor didn't answer. Inside the house, a man with a revolver came downstairs and confronted Eliza. "Give us all your liquor and cigars," he demanded. "I have no liquor," she told him. "I have cider." She went to fetch the cigars and cider. The looting went on for half an hour, and it seemed as though the men had no intention of leaving. Some of the men sat down on Hamilton's parlor chairs, chases, and sofas and put their feet up, smoking cigars and guzzling cider. 45 minutes later, the men became convinced that Hamilton wasn't there and concluded they had stolen all they had that there was to steal. One by one, they finally gave up and left. Hamilton, the richest black man in New York, narrowly escaped death that day. However, it was the fleetness of his feet and not his wealth and talent that saved his life. Let's read that again. It was the fleetness of his feet, not his wealth and talent that saved his life. How many guys know that sometimes you just got to run? Sometimes you got to run, baby. It ain't always that the money's going to save you. You understand what I'm saying? Sometimes you just got to get the hell up on out of Dodge. There had been a time when he believed that his money would protect him from racism. His brush with death at the hands of the white mob was perhaps proof that African Americans, even if they had the opportunity and skill to amass a fortune, would still face threats to their lives and prosperity, similar to the ones the masses of African Americans face, perhaps greater because of their stature. Hamilton died in his 70s, a decade after the Civil War ended. At the time of his death in 1875, he had a net worth of nearly $1 million, making him at that time the richest black man in the United States. Mr. Jeremiah Hamilton, right? This brother, he was a Wall Street broker. This brother knew how to invest. He knew how to play the stock market. He was a broker. He made trades. I'd imagine made trades for other black people in their stead or something like that. He was ruthless. They said ruthless in the stock market. This back in 1863. Now it seems that back, 150 years later, something like that, that many of us black folk, we seem to be scared of the stock market, not wanting to learn the stock market. But we have proof here from our history. There was a brother who knew it, and he ended up being the richest black man in the United States of his time. The same black man who ain't never showed up in Black History Month. Now they called him the Prince of Darkness. Matter of fact, one of the books that we'll be covering in the New Black Wall Street Book Club will be The Prince of Darkness, which is the story of Jeremiah Hamilton. I don't know if we're going to do that next. Y'all got to help me decide. We're going to do Jeremiah Hamilton, or we're going to read up on A.G. Gaston. One of the two, either Black Titan or the Prince of Darkness. We'll put that poll up for you guys to decide at some point in time. Somebody remind me, Miss Vivian, please remind me of that. But here's the deal. In America, listen, that you can get all the money you want. That's good. And now it can help you in certain situations, but it is not going to protect you at all times from racism. So don't be naive to think that sometimes you ain't going to have to run. Okay? There's sometimes you just gonna have to get the hell up on out of Dodge, no matter how wealthy you are, because people get angry. Okay, sometimes you just have to run. And so I'm really, I don't know if it's gonna be more about this. Actually, that's the end of this chapter, by the way. And I don't know whether it's going to be more about Mr. Hamilton. I mean, because that was very brief. Okay. Hopefully we get to learn more about his Wall Street broker days. Well, maybe we'll catch it in another book. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I know it was tough getting all this information. That's what I do know. I know it was tough for him to get all this information as much as he did. But at any rate, that was chapter 5 of Black Fortunes, and which was the near lynching of a millionaire, Mr. Jeremiah Hamilton, the richest black man of his time, a Wall Street broker who was married to a white woman. And that was still going on back then too, You got rich, you got a white woman. I mean, that's still happening. That ain't changed much, huh? Okay. Anyway, I'm gonna leave that by. I'm gonna drop that right there. You guys can pick that up, and you can take that wherever you're gonna take it. But it is a little thing here from. I think this is. Oh, this is for the next part. All right. So that was chapter 5, which is the near lynching of a millionaire, and now we're gonna move on to chapter 6 of Black Fortunes, which is 40 acres. Deferred. 40 acres deferred. Now, before we get there, they have a little, I think this is a quote about freedom and progress. Everybody put in the comments, so freedom and progress. It says, if there be any who are afraid of the rivalry of black men in office or in business, I have only to advise them to try and beat their competitor. That's from Thaddeus Stevens. If there be any who are afraid of the rivalry of the black man in office or in business, I have only to advise them to try and beat their competitor. Thaddeus Stevens, 1867. Thaddeus Stevens, 1867. Now, Black Fortunes, chapter 6, 40 acres deferred. 40 acres deferred. Let's read. According to lore, on a hot day in June of 1865, at the end of the Civil War, a group of Union soldiers on horseback rode into Oklahoma from Texas and convened groups of enslaved African Americans in clearings in the woods and on plantation fields. In the thick, dust-filled summer air, they told the gathering of African Americans that slavery was over. Oklahoma was vast, full of, y'all know what we're talking about, right? I'm sorry. June 1865, this is Juneteenth, right? This is why we have Juneteenth. Everybody put in comments on Juneteenth. So let's start back this chapter over. Let's read this again because we're talking about why we celebrate Juneteenth right now, okay? So on a hot day in June 1865, at the end of the Civil War, a group of Union soldiers on horseback rode into Oklahoma from Texas and convened groups of enslaved African Americans in clearings in the woods and on plantation fields. In the thick, dust-filled summer air, they told the gathering of African Americans that slavery was over. Oklahoma was vast, full of frontier towns, farms, and Indian settlements. More than 5,000 African Americans lived in the territory in bondage. Despite what they may have been told, African Americans in Oklahoma would not be liberated until much later. They would not be liberated until much later. They had been enslaved not by white men, but by the Indians of the Creek, Choctaw, Cherokee, Chickasaw, and Seminole tribes who ruled the region. So we had slaves, African Americans enslaved, but it wasn't by white men. How many guys knew that? Not by white men, but by Indians of the Creek, Choctaw, Cherokee, Chickasaw, and Seminole tribes who ruled the region. The people of the 5 major tribes of Oklahoma fought with the Confederacy during the war, and they were slow to surrender to the Union even after General Robert E. Lee and the rest of the Confederacy's soldiers laid down their weapons. Stanhope Uwate, a Cherokee Confederate brigadier general and commander of the Confederate Indian Cavalry, was the last rebel commander to lay down arms on June 23rd of 1865. Even after that, the Indian rebels continued to fight for months. Braves raided Union camps in Oklahoma every few weeks, and Indian slaveholders defied federal law and continued to hold African Americans as slaves. Their resistance was born out of their attachment to the institution of slavery and their hatred of the United States government. Indians in the southern states began enslaving African Americans as early as the 18th century, after they were introduced to the practice by white settlers. For some Indians, such as the Creek and the Pawnee, holding slaves had been a part of their culture before their first contact with Europeans. For the majority, however, their entanglement with slavery began when they became the first victims of it. In the colonies of Georgia, Mississippi, Florida, and Alabama, Indians were held as slaves alongside African Americans. Later, as the practice of enslaving Indians declined in the early 1800s, members of the Creek, Choctaw, Cherokee, Seminole, and Chickasaw tribes began to show up at slave auctions to purchase trafficked African Americans. As they shifted from pelt hunting to farming as their main source of income, plantation slavery became normal in Indian communities. In the 1830s and 40s, Indians were displaced from the South by President Andrew Jackson's Indian removal policy. Federal troops removed tens of thousands of Cherokee, Creek, Seminole, Chickasaw, and Choctaw Indians, forcing them to relocate to Oklahoma. They traveled on foot, in stagecoaches, or on the backs of horses across the Mississippi, taking their slaves with them into the wilderness. At the end of the journey, they reached an undeveloped patch of land that the government called the Indian Territory. The Indians translated the name into Choctaw and called their new home Oklahoma, meaning land of the red people. The area was also home to thousands of African Americans who made the journey as slaves to the new region. On the journey, migrants battled heat waves and hurricanes. They fought outbreaks of whooping cough, typhus, dysentery, and cholera, all the while being given inadequate rations of food and water by the federal troops who chaperoned their removal from their homelands. The African American slaves who made the journey, sometimes in chains, were assigned the bulk of the manual labor and were often the last to receive a bite of food or a sip of water. As a result, they had the highest mortality rate during their already deadly trip. For the Indians and African Americans who survived the march, it would come to be known among them as the Trail of Tears. Everybody put in console, the Trail of Tears. Now, I'm going to tell y'all straight up, I ain't know all this. Ain't nobody teach me this. I ain't getting to learn none of this stuff. I mean, I heard of the Trail of Tears. I think I heard the Trail of Tears from like some game or something like that. And I just thought it was Indians. I didn't know Indians. I didn't know Indians were slave owners of African Americans. And why the hell we not mad at the Indians? They had us slaves too. We ain't got no problem with them. We got a problem with white folk. Should we have a problem with all of them? I don't know. Who knows? I don't know. I'm just saying, I didn't know that. Okay. So, oh my goodness, the Trail of Tears is in Stone Mountain. Why the hell we keep going there to run up that damn mountain? They run up that mountain every Saturday. Like, let's go up Stone Mountain. Woohoo! Do they know the history of Stone Mountain? Oh my goodness. Matter of fact, they got some of the Georgia cigar stones up there too, don't they? I'm telling you, man, we don't know history. I know this. Anybody else knew this other than Jennifer? I didn't know this. I didn't know this. I mean, I heard of it. But I did not know it. Okay, the Trail of Tears. Wow. So here, when Indians were kicked out of the South and they had to go west, they went west with their slaves, African Americans, and the African Americans died the most because they didn't get no food and water until they got the crumbs. And whoo, Lord, that was a long trip. The Trail of Tears, the Trail of Tears from the South to the west to Oklahoma for the Indians. For the Indians. Now, can anybody help me to understand why we don't have no problem with Indians? They had us as slaves too. Of course, slavery it was a thing back then. It was like the thing, right? In order for you to have some type of developed society. I guess. I don't know. You had to have labor, and you probably didn't have a whole bunch of money at that time. It was just, you being on the land and you got a farm and it need to be done. So you get slaves, I guess, to make sure that the farming is done. I don't know. And how the hell I don't know. Let's keep reading. I'm a little baffled by this one. A trail of tears, a trail of tears. And we're going to learn today. We're going to learn today. That's what I'm talking about, man. New Black Wall Street Book Club. We're going to learn some history today. So 3 decades later, when the Civil War began, the 5 tribes of Oklahoma pledged allegiance to the Confederacy. Look at that. They joined the rebels to defend their rights as slaveholders and exact revenge on the federal government. So you mean to tell me the Indians of the West, and I'm not sure if the Indians all over the place, but the Indians of the West joined forces with the Confederate Army, who were fighting to make sure they could keep slaves, i.e. African Americans, doing free labor. And we don't have no problem with the Indians, but we got a problem with white folk. You see what happens when we want to learn his. Now, I'm not saying you should have a problem with either one of them. I'm just saying we don't ever talk about Indians when we start talking about slavery. I mean, matter of fact, maybe that's on purpose. Maybe, just maybe, the way it's set up, this whole societal institutional programming, the way they got to set up in for us, for anybody to learn, for the most part, you go through the public school education system, is to learn, is to make sure that the white man is the enemy. That seems to be what's kind of prescribed. As you grow up all your life, making the white man an enemy and fearing the white man. It's instilled fear. Just knowing that at some point in time, your brothers and sisters were in chains, we instill fear through education. Let me say it better this way. We instill fear into the hearts of men and women, people, period. Either you're going to be instilled the fear, or you're going to be instilled privilege, right? And so because the system, because the organized education, it teaches everyone the same thing, depending on your color, because predominantly who goes to these schools are black people and white people. You don't see Indians in these schools, by the way. I don't see too many Indians in public school, right? So by sending our children to school, we're basically saying, hey, we're going to allow the system to instill fear into the black kids, and we're going to allow the system to instill privilege into the white children. You can figure this out just from interpreting history. Now, how in the world are the Indians left out? How is that? We're going to learn today. As you said, that's part of the reason why Indians receive a monthly check. Because they aligned. They had an allegiance with the Confederacy. Woo! They played their part. Now, where was I at? So they joined the rebels to defend their rights as slaveholders and exact revenge on the federal government. During the Civil War, the Confederacy failed to send weapons or reinforcements to Oklahoma. As a result, the Indian rebels in Oklahoma were massacred when they had to do battle with Union fighters. Nonetheless, at the war's end, they refused to surrender. Late in 1865, under threat of all-out war, the leaders of each tribe were summoned to Reconstruction conferences in Arkansas and Washington, D.C. to negotiate their terms of surrender. First, the government demanded that the surrendering tribes sign a new peace treaty with the United States government. Second, they were to emancipate their slaves and give them tribal rights. Last, they were to cede roughly a quarter of their land as reparations to the federal government for having joined the Confederacy. The government got reparations. What the hell? Oh, Lord. The terms of the surrender of the Indians in Oklahoma brought jubilation and hope to the African Americans who had been their slaves. Slowly, at the end of 1865, more than 5,000 enslaved African Americans in the territory were set free. This is why we celebrate Juneteenth. You understand? It's important to understand like why some of these things even exist. Like we hear it, We throw the dashiki. We Wakanda forever, but we don't even know what the hell it is. Why we even, it's just a party to many of us. This is why we celebrate Juneteenth. This is why they're pushing to make Juneteenth a national holiday, in case you didn't know. So slowly, at the end of 1865, more than 5,000 enslaved African Americans in the territory were set free. Upon emancipation, they began to advocate that the confiscated Indian land be broken up into 40 or 160-acre parcels and given to them to start farms. Some even dreamed that the ceded Indian territory could be turned into an all-black state. All over the country, emancipated African Americans and their allies, the Union Army and the radical Republicans in Congress, advocated that African Americans be given 40 acres of land, perhaps with a mule and a plow. So this is where you get to understand the 40 acres and a mule. Now, I don't know about you. I done heard the stuff and the sayings, but ain't nobody ever really went through and just explained to me all this stuff. I don't even know where to find the story at. But I'm glad we read this book, right? So this is where we come into 40 acres and a mule. Now, I believe that Spike Lee, I think the name of his production company was 40 Acres and a Mule. And I watched all the Spike Lee movies, but while I would just wonder, Mr. Spike Lee, no disrespect, Mr. Lee, but why never a movie about why you named your company that, and maybe a movie about the Trail of Tears, and maybe a movie? Maybe? I don't know. I guess we don't need another slave movie. But at any rate, so this is the story. Really, we're just learning about Juneteenth. We're learning about 40 Acres and a Mule. We're learning about why we some celebrate it, or why it's even a thing, right? Here's where the whole 48. Now, see, I did not know that. I thought 40 Acres and a Mule, I thought it came from I knew it was after the Civil War. I thought it was something that Lincoln did or something like that. I don't know. I don't know how they even, now I know, but I didn't know before I know now. And I'm so glad I know now, because we just choose to do what many people don't do. We choose to read. That's right. Here on the New Black Wall Street Book Club, Black folk do read. All right, so we're learning about why Juneteenth. We're learning about the 40 Acres and a Mule thing that's going on. And I want to read this again. So again, Juneteenth is June of 1865. Okay? So what'd you say, Irvin? What's going on, Mr. Thomas? Irvin, he said something about Republicans. All right, is that a thing? Okay. This is how I heard about it, Spike Lee. Okay, all right, cool. So I'm pretty sure I know Spike Lee probably know it. I'm just saying, maybe a movie or something would have been nice. I don't know. Maybe it was in the movies some kind of way. It was in what, Do Right Thing or something, some kind of way. I don't know. School Days, some kind of way. I don't know. All right, we do read, absolutely. All right. Let me read this again, just so we get it. So slowly, at the end of 1865, more than 5,000 enslaved African Americans in the territory were set free. That's Juneteenth. Upon emancipation, they began to advocate that the confiscated Indian land be broken up. So the government had taken the land, and now there was a push from African Americans and others to say, hey, this land that y'all confiscated from the Indians, give some of it to us. So it's broken up into 40 or 168 parcels and given to them to start farms. They already knew how to farm. Hey, we can make a contribution to society. We can farm. We can grow some cotton if we need to, I guess. I don't know. So some even dreamed that the ceded Indian territory could be turned into an all-black state. All over the country, emancipated African Americans and their allies, the Union Army and the radical Republicans in Congress. Okay, that's what you're talking about, the radical Republicans. Mr. Thomas, thanks so much, man. Hey, we all here to learn. I'm taking it in. All right, so Mr. Thomas says, just saying how Republicans back then had our back, but now it's the Democrats who are looking for our votes. I had our back. Yeah. Now, I don't know if Democrats really got our back now. I don't really know. That sounds good to say. I know we predominantly vote Democrat, but I don't necessarily think that the Democrats got our back. I don't know about that. I don't know who the hell. I don't really care, right? Because who needs to have black folk back? Black folk. That's what I do know. That's what I can say, regardless of your political party. If anybody gonna have black folk back, it need to be black folk, and we don't seem to get that just yet. So at any rate, so we're gonna side with some political party. It is interesting, Mr. Thomas and anybody else. I find it interesting how it was Republicans, as he said, that actually pushed the agenda to help us through this emancipation, period. Now, does anybody know when did it switch? When did black folk like start hating Republicans and start loving Democrats? Did the Democrats have a big chicken party or something I need to know about? Did they serve some sweet potato pie? I mean, what the hell happened for the switch that we started hating Republicans and started loving Democrats? I don't know. That would be a great study. Who the hell knows that? When did that happen? When did that switch? When did that take place where we just started loving Republicans also? I mean, did they do a little dance? Did they show up at our party? Did they turn water into wine? What the hell happened? Anybody know? I'd like to know. Woo, Lord, let's keep going. In Oklahoma, the realization of those hopes felt attainable. The African Americans dreamed they could build a promised land on the old Indian lands, a place of their own where they could achieve economic independence as self-employed farmers. Now, this is getting good. I'm okay. In anticipation, hundreds of African American families took up residence on the Indian lands, living in shanty towns made up of old slave quarters and canvas tents. Now, this makes sense. Why during this period there was an influx of movement to Oklahoma for black folk, and this would make sense. The same reason why eventually we did build our own town, our own all-black state, which was Tulsa. That makes sense. That's why a lot of black folk end up in Oklahoma. Okay, this is making sense. So there was a what is it called? A pilgrimage. There was a whatever they call it. I don't know the word. There was an exodus. From someplace for black folk into Oklahoma. This is back in 1865 after the emancipation, Juneteenth. And then we didn't get the damn 40 acres, but we did have a whole bunch of black folk there at the time. So it makes sense that we're going to start moving into the period of building Black Wall Street. I wonder how far the Indian territories are from Tulsa. I guess they're in the same state, so they can't be too damn far unless Oklahoma's that damn big. I don't know. So almost as soon as they began squatting on the ceded Indian land, bands of Choctaw and Chickasaw Indians with war paint smeared on their cheeks and carrying whips began riding into the encampments on random nights, raiding and pillaging homes. They looted and smashed and dragged black men out of their homes to publicly whip or lynch them. What? As women and children watched. What? Them Indians was there. Woo! Was it Indians? Seriously? Indians was lynching us too? Oh my goodness, everybody was lynching black folk. Oh my goodness. Wait, read this again. Did I just read what I just thought I read? I think it just said that almost as soon as they began squatting on the ceded Indian land, bands of Choctaw and Chickasaw Indians with war paint smeared on their cheeks and carrying whips began riding into the encampments on random nights, raiding and pillaging homes. They looted and smashed and dragged black men out of their homes to publicly whip and lynch them as women and children watched. Despite those intimidations, the dreamers in Oklahoma remained, hoping that any day the government would give them the right to petition to be given the land. In 1866, after the Indian tribes of Oklahoma finalized their surrender with a transfer of more than 5 million acres in the center of the Indian Territory to the federal government, African Americans began to petition the Bureau of Land Management for parcels of land. Under the Homestead Act passed by Abraham Lincoln in 1862, Americans could petition the government for an allotment of publicly held lands. Soon after the first inquiries were received, the Bureau of Land Management rejected them, announcing that the lands had already been earmarked as a resettled territory for a new group of Indians who were being removed from the Midwest on the Second Trail of Tears. Defeated, some African Americans stayed and fought to be accepted as tribesmen by the Indians who had once held them as slaves. Others left Oklahoma altogether to find their way elsewhere in the emancipated world. There will be no 40 acres for them. There will be no promised land. Not yet. Chapter 6. Chapter 6, man. Every time say, have you heard about the $5 Indian? About the $5 Indian, when did that come about? I haven't heard. I don't know, man. I'm learning today. I know money. I don't know history. I'm trying to learn about history so I can know more about money. Okay. The party switched. Well, we in 1860 something now. All right, here we go. Terry Grant. I knew somebody was coming up. Here we go. Terry Grant. The switch began after the New Deal. Democrats really can be consolidating their issues with the rise of the Kennedys and the anti-Jim Crow movement. After the Voting Rights Act of 1968, Nixon was elected in 1972. He was a confirmed racist who began his attacks on the black community using J. Edgar Hoover and declaring the war on drugs, which was actually a war on black people. Black people and Democrats are still fighting the Nixon movement, which is now transferred to Trump. Okay, we're gonna learn today, people. Monica said the original was the Democratic Republican Party founded by Thomas Jefferson and James Madison. All right, so it was a double party. Oh, it was this party versus what, like libertarian or something? I don't know, man. Who Lord? This why I see. I be telling people, man, we just get somebody really get a political person like that really know this stuff and really come up and start teaching people. Man, they make a whole bunch of money. Just literally just teaching this history about this and this and this and this and this and this. But nobody be listening to me. When I be giving all these suggestions, man, you can just do that and you can make some money because hey, let's not kid ourselves, people. Teaching money and teaching politics is a big game. We learn that. We learn money and politics. Oh, game over. Right? But first it's gonna start with us what? Learning history about money and politics in this particular society or any society that you live in. We learn that. We learn the history of politics, which I guess they try to do in civil rights, but they don't talk about the history of black folk in politics. They just talk about the history of politics. They ain't gonna talk about this stuff. And then you learn about the history of money. Man, you was a powerful Negro. You're an educated Negro at that point, man. Now you really dangerous. You become a dangerous Negro. Woo, that's chapter 6, man. Black Fortunes. Getting here on the New Black Wall Street Book Club as we're going through the book Black Fortunes, the story of the first 6 African Americans to escape slavery and become millionaires. The story of the first 6 African Americans to escape slavery and become millionaires. And we have in previous episodes, we talked about Mary Ellen Pleasant. We're talking about Robert Reed Church. We just talked a little bit about Jeremiah Hamilton, who was the richest black man in the United States in his time. I guess that was 1865-ish. And now we're just got through reading about the transition or the transport or the movement of blacks into the West area, Oklahoma, and which with the emancipation taking place in 1865, brings us to why we celebrate this thing called Juneteenth. And we also I don't know about y'all, but I learned, right? And we were slaves to Indians too. They were lynching us too. Black folk couldn't get no help. We've been by ourselves for a long time. That's why I keep saying we all we got. It's been that way. We've been all we got. We've been all we got. Man, this is New Black Wall Street Book Club, where black folk do read. You put in a book like Daily Motivations for African American Success by Mr. Dennis P. Kimbro. You put it in a book like Black Fortunes, the story of the first 6 African Americans to escape slavery and become millionaires, and we absolutely will find it. My beautiful people, what y'all talking about now? That book that changed my life regarding politics, this was Dick Gregory. No, okay, so we got to read now. We got a new book recommendation, the Dick Gregory book, No More Lies. I put it on the board. Yes. And Hispanics, man. I know that's right, man. Thanks so much for that. See, I knew we were going to get a new book. We got Black Type we got to read. We got the Prince of Darkness we got to read. Now we got Dick Gregory, my brother from another mother, who be talking all that truth. I don't know how he get away with it. He be talking so much truth. How he get away with it? I don't know. Because everybody think he crazy. And when you think somebody crazy and they tell you the truth, you don't know what to do. Okay. So No More Lies by Dick Gregory. Oh man, we about to elevate. We about to liberate. We about to free our minds, and the rest will follow. Well, my brothers and sisters, I want you to remember this: that it takes a village. It starts with us. Let's build as we climb together. We all we got, people. And if this book right here don't teach you that, man, but we all, but thank God, but we all we need. And thank God, that's more than enough. Until next episode, you know what time it is. Mr. DJ, hit the music.
It's the New Black Wall Street Book Club. New Black Wall Street. With your host, Evan Jefferson. It's time for us to go. Yeah. Now, you ain't got to leave the computer, but we encourage you to get out there and learn and apply all the things you learn at the New Black Wall Street Book Club. Yeah. The New Black Wall Street. The New Black Wall Street Book Club.